Rising, and welcome back to Grounding, Growing, and Gardening. This video was prompted by several things, and it may just be a ramble, but at the end, I'm going to take you through a little walk through the garden and show you how things are growing this season. But I really want to talk about perception and the way that we perceive ourselves through the lens of others. I was thinking about that this morning when I was walking around. I woke up super early for me. I'm kind of a night owl, and I didn't go to bed till almost 2 last night, but then my eyes popped open around 7 o'clock this morning, and I haven't been in my backyard to hang out in about a week and a half, and because I've been working. And so I thought I'm just going to go outside and hang out with the chickens. I've got the water going so I can wet down an area to move them to so that I can poke the fence into the ground because the ground is so hard that I can't do that. And while I was out here, I was looking at what has become just an insanely beautiful garden this season and thinking about how when I started this channel, there was nothing but grass here. And I started the channel with the intention of really just creating a space that I could look back over time and see my own growth because I was in a very depressed state. My postpartum had been terrible, and I just, of course, COVID, we all got depressed, and I just really needed something for me. And so I started this channel for me. I know there's a bunch of you guys that have followed me, and I appreciate that. And I hope that you've learned something along the way besides just silly nonsense. Um, but then I stopped posting. And this season, I have not posted much because honestly, I have been working 6 to 7 days a week. Inflation, as we know, is crazy, and I've needed to work a ridiculous amount to keep my home going. But the first couple of times that I kind of quit posting and would come back was because I had this idea, like a lot of us do, that it needed to be perfect, and it wasn't perfect yet, and I was embarrassed. I mean, even though this channel really was for me, I knew other people were going to see it, and I didn't want the backlash, and I didn't want to hear, oh, that's not a garden, which I heard this season, by the way. I had somebody on TikTok tell me, oh, I guess that you think that's a garden. We all have to start somewhere. And it made me giggle because I know how much work I've put into this garden, and it has been a true labor of love. It is definitely what I would call an ADHD garden. It is wild, and although there are semi-intentional pathway areas, it has just grown out of control this season. And as you'll see here in a little bit, it it doesn't look like anybody else's garden, and I absolutely love that. And because it's not anybody else's garden, it's my garden. And right now, it's lush and it's beautiful. But a month ago, it didn't look like this. 2 months ago, it didn't look like this. And so what I wanted to talk to you guys about today is really the idea that a lot of times we have a vision, we have a plan, we have an idea, and we really let the perception of others or the perceived perception, what are they going to think? How are they going to react? Squash our own spark of ingenuity and our dreams. And we really have to stop doing that because the world is not a curated Instagram post. And this chair that I'm sitting in is weather worn and dirty and has been outside for years. And I could be like, oh, it's not perfect. I don't care. I don't care. I don't have any makeup on right now. I don't care. My hair's in a bun. I don't care, because it doesn't matter. Like when my kids look back at this YouTube channel in 20 or 30 or 40 years, and they're going to be like, that's my mom. Look how awesome she was. Look how pretty she was. They're not going to care that I don't have makeup on. They're not going to care that the yard needs to be mowed. I mean, I need to weed eat. I need to put more cardboard out in places. I need to get more wood chips down in places. This garden will never stop becoming something new. And we have to stop thinking that what we're doing is not good enough to be perceived by other people. Because what if the other people that are perceiving what you're doing aren't even where you are? What if what you're doing is giving other people the bravery, the courage, the confidence to go forward and say, you know what, I can do that too? Because that's what happened to me. I started watching several gardening channels during COVID, and I had not gardened in a couple of years. And well, I take that back. I started a very small garden in 2019, but I had not ever gardened on this scale, ever. And my first few gardens had been what I would consider to be a failure. The first year that I gardened, I got one salad out of my garden. And then I became a single mom of 3 preteen teenagers, and had to go back to work full time. And that garden got mowed down. It got mowed down. I didn't have time for it. Somebody else would have seen that as a failure. It wasn't. It was a tool in my tool belt, right? Because the next time that I wanted to garden, I knew that I didn't have to do things the way I had done them before. I knew that where I had put my garden before wasn't going to be good because of the amount of light that area got. It wasn't going to be good because of the need to mow in that specific part of the yard and not having room to mow around the garden. I spent that first garden, I spent 20 hours, I feel. That may be a slight over exaggeration, but not much. Digging up old pecan roots out of the ground because I couldn't get the tiller to till the ground because there had been a pecan tree there at one point in time. And I literally would dig down 6-8 inches and chop those old pecan roots up out of the ground and pull them up like vines. Unnecessary. But I didn't know. I had never gardened before. I was doing what my stepdad told me I needed to do, which was to use his big, oversized, designed for a 250-pound man tiller. And over the years, I've learned you don't even need to till. You should not till. This is a no-till garden. This area was tilled one time 4 years ago. And that was because at that point in time, I was still learning. The next season, it was not tilled. It was covered in cardboard to kill the grass. And one area I did where I'm sitting was ground cloth with holes cut in it. And maybe you've seen that video. I don't even know if maybe I didn't even post that video. I've got probably 600 or 800 hours of B-roll on my computer that I haven't posted because I was embarrassed. So I think I'll just have to at some point in time post a B-roll video of just random stuff so that I can see and you guys can see where this was and where it is now. Because 4 years ago, this was grass. There was nothing here. 3 years ago, there was a little patch of garlic right here next to me. And there were zinnias, baby zinnias, little tiny seedlings that I had planted over beyond where these zinnias are now. And I had to have a mower guy come, and he drove over my garden because he couldn't even see it. He couldn't even perceive that there was a garden there. All he could see was grass. And there was grass because I had planted I had done a quick hand till job, and then I'd planted the zinnias, and the grass had already started to grow back. 2 years ago in the fall, I had spent, gosh, I don't know, 20 hours out here during the summer into the fall laying new cardboard. My neighbors thought I was a nut. It was literally a field of cardboard out here. And I started bringing in, I brought in a dump truck load of compost. I tried to film that, and I filmed it on TikTok, and TikTok deleted it before I even got to post it. It was very sad, but uh, a dump truck full of compost, bio soil, and I hand brought it out here. At some points in time, I was using the trailer for my lawnmower. At one point in time, my lawnmower broke down for like 3 months, and it was winter time, and I didn't have the money to get it fixed. So I was moving that that mound, that giant pile of dirt, one wheelbarrow at a time. My 2-year-old at the time was helping me with her little mini wheelbarrow, and she would do the best she could. She thought it was so fun. And again, I have videos of that, but I didn't post them because I was embarrassed that somebody wasn't going to understand what I was doing. They weren't going to get it, and they were going to judge me. And that imposter syndrome it can take over. It can just completely take over and can destroy your life. You can get stuck because of your perceived perception of what others are going to perceive you as. And instead of moving forward, you can just stay right where you are for 30 or 40 years. And what good does that do anybody? Because, a lot of us say, like, well, if you don't pay my bills, what do I care about your opinion? But honestly, it's like, it's not even that petty. It's like you need to perceive yourself in a positive light as long as you're doing good things and being a good person, right? Don't go around and be a jerk to other people and then be like, I'm a good person. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, like, if you're a good person and you're doing your best, you have to remember that you're doing your very best. And there's always going to be somebody doing better than you. There's always somebody doing worse than you. And there's always somebody that's not going to understand what you're doing. But if you have a vision, you got to see it through. And I feel like I'm talking to myself just as much as I'm talking to you guys. Like, there have been so many times in my life where I have literally just let other people's perception of me, or the perceived perception of what they might think, stop me from doing what I needed and wanted to do. And we have got to, as a whole collective, we've got to stop that, right? Like who cares what somebody else thinks of us if we're happy and we're doing our best and ants on my toes, ants on my toes, and being a good person. Oh, excuse me. I guess there's a hidden ant pile under that mound of grassy stuff. So anyway, so that's the point of this video is stop caring so much. And we'll do a real quick garden tour, and then I need to mow, and I need to move the compost buckets, which I haven't done a compost video in a long time. Maybe I'll bring you guys along, and that'll be a separate video. I need a mount. Like, I'm thinking about getting one of those like neck mounts, even though they look ridiculous. Who cares, right? Because I have so much work that I do where I could bring y'all along if I could not have to use my hands or my tripod. I hope this. Oh yeah, the green light's on. That's the other thing. My camera at one point in time, my phone is a 2018 iPhone X, right? So it is old. It's old, and the screen protector's cracked. So sometimes you see like weird lighting issues happening. But it's also got a speaker issue. And so for a while, I wasn't able to film because my old mic broke. Actually, 2 mics broke, and I just didn't get a new one. So finally, I spent $10 and bought a new mic. Uh, the things we put off. Anyway, let's look at the garden. Let's see how it's grown in the past 3 years. Okay, so we're going to start over here. Now, 3 years ago, this is about, gosh, I would say maybe 20, no, that's about 14 feet by 14 feet. So maybe like a 28-foot section. That's kind of where I started my garden. And there were originally like tomatoes over here, and then the next year there was garlic. Right now, we've got lots of bush beans, and you can see here and then over there in the background, there are more bush beans. Now, this is one of the things that I'm talking about. I built these boxes. I had never built a box before. They're just kind of badly put together, screws in the corners. You can't even see the one down there on the end because it's so grown over with grass. And I could be too embarrassed to show you that, but I don't care anymore because I know how much work has gone into this and how difficult it has been and everything that we've been through this season. That's my grandmother's yard over there, and you can't see in there, but there are 3 puppies. There were 4, and they all got parvo, and 1 passed, and my oldest child and their partner really did the majority of the work keeping those puppies alive and doctoring them. We had to do shots at home every day for a couple of weeks, and it was a very stressful time. And during that time, I was working like 8 to 12 hours a day, depending on the day, and about 6 days a week. But anyway, we have to do what we need to do, right, to keep our family going and ourselves functioning in this overpriced society we live in. So I'm going to step over these beans so I can turn around. Now the sun's fixing to catch us. So all these zinnias are volunteers from last season and the season before. So I've only planted zinnias out here one time. That would have been in the summer of 2021. And so that's 4 years. 4 years of zinnias off of one planting. And all of these beans are the same variety. There is some squash back here. This is summer squash, yellow neck squash that I planted a second planting of maybe 3 weeks ago. There's some pokeweed and some other things growing up in the fence line that need to be handled, but that's okay. That is okay. One thing I love about this garden is that it is a back to Eden style garden. And so when this is poke, and I don't want this in my garden, some people eat this. I'm not super excited about eating poisonous things, so I'm not going to do that. But when things grow up, I can just pull them, chunk them out, because there are about 4 to 6 inches of compost and then wood chips all over the top of the compost. Now over here we have some red spike amaranth. And I had never grown amaranth before. I had tried, but it had never worked. And I didn't realize how big this stuff was going to get. But it is gigantic, and it's beautiful, and I love it. And there's more on the other side of the trellis, as you can see. This is a volunteer watermelon. I did not plant this. My chickens planted it, and it came up, gosh, it's August now. It started coming up in June. And you can see all of the pollinators that are in there having the best time. We've got butterflies, we've got bees. But when it came up, it was over there around the octagonal bed that was built in 2020. And maybe 2021, I'll have to look back. And I was just like, oh, cute watermelon. And because of the quality of this soil, it has just literally, I'm a good 30 feet, 25 feet from the octagonal bed, which you can't see because again, well, maybe you can see where the tall stuff is growing in front of the Texas Vitex, that Texas lilac. There is some asparagus in there, that maybe you can see that ferny looking stuff. Those are asparagus that went too far, and I just let them go to seed. But other than that, there's really nothing in that bed this season. There was some garlic and some onions, and I pulled them before the grass came in. I did have some zucchini in there, and I got one decent zucchini before the squash bugs and the vine borers took over. And then I've got these sunflowers that are about 3 feet tall or so, and I planted those again like end of June. Kind of late in the season to be planting sunflowers, but I had them and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to plant these here. Just going to see what happens. So everything in the garden this year is from seed. I did not buy a single thing because I was determined to not to. And just look, I mean, look how vibrant. They're so beautiful. I'm going to come out here in a little bit and get some cut flowers for the house. Probably take my grandmother some too. But you can see, I mean, I've got a tree that needs to come down. I've got a chicken wandering around because I couldn't get the stake back in the yard. I've got areas I can't mow because that tree makes me scared. So until it comes down, there's nothing I can do really over on that side of the yard. There's always something, right, that other people are going to judge and be like, nah, 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 nah. And you're like, you know what? I'm doing the best I can, and I'm proud of what I'm doing. All right, let's walk around here. I've got some more amaranth down here. This is Love Lies Bleeding, and it isn't as strong, obviously, as the red spike. It's not nearly as big as the red spike, um, but it's pretty, and I like it. And I planted them at the same time. There's a little more of it. Planted them at the same time, and I just don't think that that is as a hardy of a variety, honestly. There are some tomato vines here that were teeny tiny in, I think, end of May, maybe June. Really late in the season for these to go in. Here's my little fig tree. I got this last year around Earth Day and put it in. It did make several figs this season, and they are delicious. And I'm just excited that it lived through the winter and is doing its thing. Ugh. Down here, right here, and right here. That is purple coneflower that I started from seed, and it has been, I literally put that out in like April or maybe the beginning of May, and they were just teeny tiny, and I didn't think they were going to make it. And they finally started doing something, and I'm excited because that is a perennial. So even though they look just ridiculously small this season, they should do way better next year. And that's the thing. It's a really good example of what I'm talking about with this perception. Like I could have gotten mad at him and just pulled him out and been like, you didn't do anything. But I didn't. I thought, let's just leave it. Let's see what happens, right? Marigolds down here. Little watermelons. I have a fence, a gate that I brought out to put in front of this trellis, and I laid it down and got busy. And I actually laid it down because I was like, I think I want to paint that pink. And then I never got back to it. Nut grass everywhere. But the good thing about this style of gardening, you can just pull it out super easy. You don't have to weed like a crazy person. And then let's see, what else? There are a few marigolds in this crazy level of, I don't know if you can even see if I can find one. This crazy amount of watermelon. And I'm telling you guys, like, I mean, Look at those sunflowers compared to this sea. It really is like an ocean of watermelon vines. Like it's bigger than a lot of people's swimming pools. It's crazy. Um, and then over here we have what is not so beautiful, right? Like there were lots of lettuces and things in this area of the garden, and um, a lot of it just got too big, and a lot of it went to seed. I left the seed, and I've got some more growing in from this seed. I haven't planted any more, but this is rainbow chard. I put it in. I forgot about it. Some of it went to seed, some of it's just hanging out, and probably as the fall comes, it will be more um, productive, and I can cut back the older leaves and use the younger leaves again. But we learn, right? We're just learning. More squash, the second round of squash that went in. I've got all over the garden, I have these little volunteer strawberries that squirrels and birds planted for me. Here's one of the little lettuces that planted itself. There are carrots. This one has gone to seed, and I'm excited about that because I've never been successful with carrots at all. And there's a few that are still living and viable, and I'm going to leave those, just let them get as big as I can. Lots and lots that died, and then this one has gone to seed, and I'm excited to be able to collect seed from a carrot that I raised. That's exciting. More lettuce over here. And of course, the big octagonal garden that needs to be weeded. I mean, I need to weed it. I need to put new compost in there. I need to put cardboard down under that compost. I want to put wood chips because I want to put wood chips all the way around it so that I don't have to mess with it next season, because I want this area to be as easy as that area was. But 2 years ago, this was just a wild grassy thing that I covered in cardboard. Last season, the grass got 4 feet high, and I had to weed eat it all down, and that's when I started bringing in the wood chips. So we're just learning, right? We're just learning together. And this is the second. I won't say the original garden because it's not. It's the second garden, and it has had updates and changes. And I'm going to see if I can get where you guys can see a little better. All my compost buckets, I mean, honestly, the compost buckets never end on this property. There's always something to wash. There's always something to be dumped. There's always something that's ready to be transferred back. These need to be washed. Those need to be dumped. That is grass clippings that needs to go in the compost. There's compost that my chickens have been turning behind the wagon, compost that is pretty close, compost that definitely is close, but I want to sort it, sift it, and then a giant pile of limbs and cardboard that is just going to take a while to break down. That wasn't really a good plan. I just started dumping stuff over there. It happens. But in this garden, originally this season, there was 3 rows of garlic, okay? And then over there you can see those 2 eaten up larger, one is a cabbage and one, oh, I think maybe they're both cabbage. And no, one's broccoli, I think. And those were from last season. They were from seed. I planted tons and tons of seed, and only a few came up. And out of those few that came up, only a couple lived through the winter, and they never even made anything because the bugs got them. So I've left them as kind of a trap crop to keep the bugs away from my big garden. There are some watermelon in here that I planted a couple of months ago that really haven't done anything. And you can tell the difference, right? Things that are in this open air area that just haven't had I mean, there's been compost in here. There's been organic fertilizer. I've done the things, I've watered, but compared to where that same watermelon over there on that side that, well, it's not the same variety, but it is a watermelon planted about the same time, has just taken over because it has that constant moisture wicking from the wood chips. Got a few tomatoes left over here. Marigolds down there at the bottom. Cantaloupe that just volunteered, and I left them just to kind of keep a ground cover over here and just see what they would do. Actually, I've only gotten one cantaloupe so far, and the chickens actually got that because it split before I was able to get to it. Grass that needs to be dealt with, and then a couple of cantaloupes in here, one behind the trellis system over there. And the thing about it is that a lot of people would be like, look at that crappy garden. I'm so sorry. I love this. I love this. And if you don't love that, that's okay. It doesn't mean it's bad. It just means we're different, right? Uh, so anyway, whole point of this video, if you love something and it's not unhealthy, keep doing it, even if you think that other people don't get it, because their perception of you or your perception of their perception of you doesn't really matter. And I'm grateful for you guys being here with me, today. And I'm grateful for the courage to show you guys my garden again. I'm going to try really hard not to let myself get down in the dumps and disappear. If you like this and you want more information on how I actually did this, like the whole process, the step by step, I'll be happy to share that. And I hope you guys have a blessed day. Remember to stay grounded, keep growing, and don't forget to water yourself. Thanks for being here with me.